I'd like a drum roll.
Give me just a second to confirm. And you are live.
A very hearty welcome to all of our members of the Annapolis Human Relations Commission joining us this evening for our monthly meeting. I'd like to thank those present for participating in our meeting. We do have a quorum present, and so we're going to move ahead with our business. The first item is the approval of the minutes from our December meeting, which was our last meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, the minutes shall stand approved by common consent. I'd like to call on Claudia if she has a staff liaison report for us this evening.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to share my time with for my staff liaison report with the HR director, Patricia Hawkins, who's online with us tonight. Our work or efforts over the past 2 months since we last met have largely centered around having a sub meeting of sorts with Captain Amy Maguez of the Annapolis Police Department and Linda Mundy and Mike Keller. And we have been dialoguing about some sort of efforts to have hate crime incidents and unconscious bias training presented to commission members. And I will allow them to go into more detail as to where we stand now. But that has been largely the work or efforts of what we've been doing since our last meeting. We did have a successful meeting also with Hillary Raftovich of the mayor's office, who has also been involved in working to see if this commission training can also be extended to other commissions. So I will allow Tricia Hopkins to take over and give us more insight on where we are with our research and efforts to get moving on these topics.
Yeah, I would just mention that we do have that on the agenda, both the
okay.
of the status of response training and status of inclusion training. And I'd like to wait until we finish the.
We can wait until it's on the agenda.
Right.
Okay.
Till we come through that. Is there anything else that you wish to add, Claudia?
No, that would be all.
Okay, Tricia, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No.
Okay.
No, I can wait for the agenda item.
Okay, fine. In terms of my report, I'd like to thank Mark Hildebrand from City of Annapolis Television for handling the Zoom technology for us. Thank you so much, Mark. You don't know how valuable that service is to the commission. So thanks. Also, I would just like to mention to the commission that I took part today in a program. I can find some of the details of it here. It was a Human Rights Day program in Annapolis, sponsored by the Maryland Association of Human Rights Agencies. It's an organization which the commission has been involved with for, I guess, a long time. And I'll have some comments to make about that as we go further in the agenda. But I would mention now that they had a plenary session on the subject of addressing hate crimes and hate bias incidents. They came up with some very good speakers and presenters whom we want to call upon, and because they're both work in the public sector, we might, I think, probably stand a very good chance to get them free. But I'll have more to say to that when we get further down on the agenda. Our first business item this evening is going to be brought to us and guided by Commissioner Linda Monday. And she is going to be leading us in a brainstorming session to begin a goal setting process for the Human Relations Commission. So I'm just going to turn it over to Linda at this point, and Linda, move us out on this one.
Okay. Hey, everybody. Hey, Mike, I just noticed Rosemary's not here, and
Yes, I should have mentioned that. Rosemary Katchmar called me. She's got an excused absence this evening.
Okay.
She's on a conference call with the FAA, and she did say that this is coming to an end because she plans to retire sometime this spring. But she said she absolutely could not be on the call tonight.
Okay.
So she's the one that I think really wanted to take part in this, but
Yeah.
She just can't because of work obligations.
Okay. 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 So, hi, everybody. I am excited to do this process with you. I've put together a presentation, and I'm using a tool called Canva, which is kind of a graphic design tool that I use, but it also allows me to, enter in our brainstorming ideas in a creative way. And then we can kind of reorganize them, prioritize, and all that kind of thing. Because of this format, you'll see part of the Canva program. So hopefully that won't be too distracting. It's not going to be just the presentation, mainly because I have to be interactive here. So I just wanted to kind of set that up. And let me go ahead and start. Share my screen. Does everybody see that slide? Brainstorm session.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And let me try to make it a little bit bigger. Again, I have restraints because of the program itself. Let's see. Okay. So, I Googled goal setting with teams ideas, and I ended up using a format that I found in LinkedIn. I didn't know it had so many helpful articles. And then also Canva itself already had a brainstorm session template. So that's where you'll see these fancy graphics. You'll know those are the Canva slides. And then I've kind of customized it for the work that we're going to do here today. And so I just want to kind of talk about, what this brainstorm session will be about. Right now, today, this evening, we're just going to create a space for ourselves to present our ideas for forward movement with the commission. And then eventually what we'll do is we're going to brainstorm on ideas. We will then eventually start to put them in some buckets and then talk about how do we implement these ideas. And this probably will end up being a 2-session thing. I talked to Mike about timing. He said, Linda, you can use as much time as you want. So I have some options at the end with our implementation planning, which we could continue to do tonight. But I will tell you the brainstorm session itself will take about an hour, 50 minutes to an hour, depending on how many ideas we have and where we want to go with that. So this is kind of the agenda and what it will look like. We're going to do a little warm-up session just to kind of clear our minds a bit and freshen up. We'll talk about our rules for engagement this evening, which to me sounds odd when you put rules and brainstorming around next to each other. but I think you'll see, what I mean by that when we get to that point. And then we will also, talk about the goals for this session. We'll brainstorm on what goals we want in this session, and then we'll brainstorm on our commission goals. And then the last part will be about next steps, and that's where we'll just kind of discuss how we want to implement that. If we want to do it, some more of that work tonight, of that planning tonight, or indeed if we want to wait until next meeting, or if we want to do a meeting in between with our teams of outreach and the complaints process, and however that looks. So that will be all up for discussion. And actually, I think I changed the format for, the order. So, all right, we'll start with our warm up. So this is just a fun little warm up. Just if each of us could share maybe something funny that happened today to you, something you read that was funny, a situation that you had today that was funny. And by the way, Jay, baby stories are always funny and we love to hear them. And if you don't have anything, maybe you have a joke or a riddle you'd like to share. But what we're trying to do right now is just switch up a bit, right? And just kind of let go of the day and our to-do lists and the worries that we have, whatever we're showing up with. So does anybody want to start with something funny?
I'll start since I may have been lightly called out.
Prompted you.
Let's see, the funniest thing that has happened today, usually nightly on, probably from about 5:30 until 6, my baby and his maternal grandparents, paternal grandparents have a FaceTime call with him, and he doesn't talk or he doesn't speak yet, but I swear that he had a full-on conversation with his grandparent when a call and response for each time. His words sounded like real words, even though they were just wah, ah, uh-huh. And I just got a big crack out of everything that he said today, because whenever he was asked a question, he responded, and that doesn't typically happen.
That's awesome. Thank you. Anybody else?
Well, one of the things that happened at the Human Rights Day conference, and I was there from 10 a.m. until close to 3:30 p.m. So it was an all-day conference, and it was dealt with serious business. But they had a lot of legislators who were speaking, and we had one senator from forget the district in line, but he gave a very short statement, plugging the particular bills that he wanted wanted to have passed, and he concluded his remarks by saying, "I'm Senator so and so, and I approve this message." That got a chuckle out of the group. And I made a mental note to remember that. I thought it was pretty cute.
Anybody else? And you could even just share something
Linda,
that happened today.
Linda, it's Chuck. I don't think it's as funny as the first two, but I sent one of my grandsons a video of a trick pull shot, and got a great reaction from him in return. He's off at college.
Nice. Good things to learn in college, right?
That's right.
Anybody else? I can share a happy story today. I've been helping the Annapolis Trust just opened a center over in Annapolis Gardens. The Annapolis Trust is an organization that started with Reggie Brody, who helped found the Boys and Girls Clubs of Anne Arundel County. And so he asked me to help do some PR for one of their youth there who has just been awarded a scholarship to Scotland to go to a summer school there that we call it the Kings and Queens Summer School because it's where, you know, Prince Charles went and his sons went there. And actually, I think Prince Charles attended Gordonston. And they've been doing this for many years. Anyhow, I was able to, it ended up being on the front page of the Capital Gazette yesterday. And it also hit the Annapolis Times last week. So I was able to drop off some of those papers yesterday to them so that she could get it. And she was really excited and texted me and Mr. Brody and said, "I'm in the paper." And we both just said, we're really proud
That's
of it.
great.
So it was very
Yeah,
cool.
that's great.
Anybody else? Does everybody see my timer working here?
Yeah, notice that. That's pretty
Oh,
cute.
isn't that? Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was going to work. I hadn't tried that function until just now.
Ah, look
We
at
got
that.
time for one last one. Would anybody else like to share anything? Well, I think we have enough fodder. So, because if nobody was going to share, I was going to tell you we're going to have to do breathing exercises. So I'm glad we were like, we cleared our mind a little bit.
Yeah, that would have qualified for the funny thing that happened today.
Exactly. Okay, so that's our warm up. So what I like to do next is just kind of talk about, you know, what we're gonna be how we're going to engage this evening. As far as you know, putting our ideas forth, I just want to acknowledge we want all ideas, right? There may be something that we have in mind of what we think we need to be doing, but we may throw out another idea that could just put us on a whole different path that maybe is what we really need to be doing. So no ideas are bad ones. If you maybe need expansion on an idea, then ask questions rather than saying, oh, we can't do that. That's not in our role, that kind of thing. Just ask questions. Be creative. Don't be afraid to be creative. We'll have opportunities to build and combine ideas. I definitely want to do a little bit of this where I'm going to ask each person for an idea. And if you don't have one that you would like to contribute, just say pass. But also know that if you have the same idea as somebody else, if you just want to add to it, perfectly acceptable. Be open-minded and respectful of ideas. Again, try not to criticize or provide negative feedback. Stay on topic. Step up and step back, which I use in a lot of my groups. And that's really to give opportunity for everybody to contribute. So, you know, if you step up with an idea, then step back and allow other people to provide additional ideas and, you know, at least let everybody have a chance again before you share your next idea. And then we're going to have a lot of time. I've timed this all so that we don't, you know, end up spending too much time in sections and we keep it simple. And then I guess I'm just wondering, is there anything that you think needs to be added to this? You know, first of all, are you in agreement with this list? And is there anything that you would like to see here in our brainstorming session for some framework to work in? I'll take that as we're good and thumbs up, I guess, if everybody's good. And you know, if anybody has, and if anything comes up during the time of you think that would be a good framework, then please share that. The roles needed for this session was the facilitation role, and I'm taking that role on this evening. And the monitoring role, and what I'm asking, because I'm sharing screen and I can't see everybody's faces all the time, I guess I'm asking, could somebody be responsible for watching people's faces to see, hey, it looks like that person might have a question, or if hands are raised, could somebody say, hey, Linda, Chuck wants to share and he hasn't gotten a chance to yet, or whatever that is. Could somebody take on that role of just monitoring everybody here?
I can do that.
Okay, thank you. And then timekeeper, we have the timing working. I think the timekeeper would be to remind me to set the timer at each section here, and then to, perhaps say, hey, Linda, it's run out. Because again, I've got my notes over here. I'm looking at the screen. I'm trying to watch you all. So I just want to make sure that I've got all bases covered. Could anybody volunteer to be timekeeper?
I'll volunteer.
Thank you, Jay. Okay. So we will begin. Okay. So the first part of this is setting some goals for the session. I didn't bring to you the definition of everything that we're doing here today, because I felt like that should also come from the group, so that we're in agreement of what it is we're doing here today. I think what we really want to do is to try and identify where there might be some problems, where there might be some ideas and solutions, and then eventually what kind of action we can take. So I'm curious to hear what you would like to see come out of this brainstorming session tonight. And Mike, I'm going to start with you because you're the chair and you and I have talked about this enough, and I just want to make sure that you and I are in agreement with this. I'm not sure why I can't get this thing to stop and go. Oh, there we go. So Mike, what are your goals for tonight?
Well, I think for what I want to see come out of this is going to be a common sense from the group of what the commission ought to focus its time on over the course of this year. What are the issues that the commission wants to address, and how do we best promote those activities?
Okay. How's everybody seeing this? Are they too small?
Pretty small, yeah, Linda. If you
Oh,
can-
yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see, I can make them bigger.
There you go.
That's good.
What did I do there? So I'm going to ask each person to share here what they'd like to see. Is there anything else you would like to see?
I'll take a shot at that, Linda. I would like to see us kind of focus on 3 to 5 goals that would have the commission more engaged in the community. Well, and your timer is not working, I think, by the way.
I think you're right. Dang it. All right, I'm going to minus 2 minutes or set 3 minutes there. Okay. That the
There
commission
it goes.
focus on 3 to 5 goals that will have the commission focus on the community.
More engaged in the community.
Okay. Jay, you're next on my screen.
I guess to find find and bridge a gap between the see all ages of members of the community.
Diane, you're next. Do you have anything to add here?
Not at this time.
Okay.
I do.
Okay, Helen, you're next. Awesome.
Something I've always wanted to see us do more of, and I don't know how to do this, is to be more reactive when hate crimes happen in our city, particularly like when people distribute those hate pieces of horrible stuff that they throw in people's yards. And I really don't know how we can do that, but I would just like to do that so that the community would know that we're here and we're responding to it in some way.
Okay. I might move that onto another slide. I'm going to put it over here. Reason is what we're doing right now is just what are our session goals? Like what outcomes would we like to see from this session in general?
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? And then
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm going to move it here and then we'll remember to come back and get it. Joshua, do you have anything?
Yes, I think that I think someone already said this, but engaging the community so that the community understands what the commission's role is, and educating them on exactly what it is that the Human Relations Commission actually does. I think it's very important for me. So what are some of the ways, coming up with ways in which we can accomplish that goal?
Okay. Lakeisha, do you have any thoughts on some goals that you would like to see for this brainstorming session tonight?
Hi, everyone. I do. So I think that I'm kind of going to go back with the identify three possible actions that the commission can set as an achievement to be accomplished, between now and let's just say by the fall or by next winter. I see one as speaking about engaging the community as one, but then two other actions or goals that you all would like to accomplish.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Claudia and Trisha, I would love for you all to check in too.
Well, I would, I think you're on you guys are on the right course when it comes to studying hate crime incidents, knowing the difference between a hate crime incident and an actual hate crime, what constitutes hate crimes under the state definition of hate crime, because it continues to change, and focusing on also how the county comes up with its statistical methods of accumulating data on hate crimes in the county. Why at one year the county was at the top of the list, And is that changing? And can that be also, can the data also be driven to the city of Annapolis? So those are the thoughts. I think it's great that the commission is on the right course when they address issues such as hate crimes and how they impact our community.
Okay. Trisha, do you have anything that you would like to see us think about?
Yeah, I could offer something. One area that I think would help with visibility of the commission is a more robust presence on the website that's more defining for people about what the commission does, maybe mixing up it with some multimedia, maybe a video here or there, that's making individuals more visible through addressing the community on particular areas that the commission has responsibility and potential growth in. We'll talk more about this when we get into the training component, but we could also connected with some of the initiatives probably have educational videos for people to watch to be able to, since we're talking about hate crimes, distinguish between what is freedom of speech and what's a hate crime, and therefore what their rights and their access to resources would be.
Okay.
Our time has been reached.
Thank you. I think I'm going to add one other thing, just what I would like to see us accomplish, not necessarily in this session tonight, but overall with this whole process, is just reiterating, I think, what Lakeisha was talking about, but to actually put together an action plan. Did I capture everything here? Is there anything I didn't capture well? And is there anybody that would like to add one more anything else that's came up for you after we did this check-in on what we'd like to accomplish in this session tonight? Okay. Okay. So if we summarize, I think my suggestion on summarizing our information might be in 3 buckets. And I'm going to propose this to you now, because if you agree with this model or you want to change it or add to it, we'll use this for the next steps as well. But I was thinking of kind of putting in buckets, putting all these goals in buckets. 1 would be overall HR commission. Number 2 would be outreach. And number 3 would be complaint process. And I am basing that basically on how we're structured. Does that make sense to everybody?
It does. Are you, and when you reach, or I guess make the statement of outreach, is that similar to like marketing? Because that's at least something that I see in terms of getting, if we're talking about getting the word out or trying to communicate with and get people involved to know who and what we are. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. Do we have kind of an overview as to what are the goals of the outreach commission or the outreach committee and the complaint committee? Would either one of the leaders of those 2 committees just like to throw something out, or?
Yeah. This is Chuck, Linda. The outreach committee is pretty clear. I mean, they are, they're to consider and recommend when hate incidents occur or particularly in housing, of course. The outreach committee, and I'm embarrassed I haven't done more in a number of years that I've been there. I've done some sporadic stuff, but I think it would benefit from a more specific agenda. And this, I think, in addition, I don't know whether this is goal setting or it would come up later. One of the things I think we would benefit from is inviting community leaders to come talk to the commission. We've done some of that, but I think we could do more.
So
And
I guess my question, Chuck, is actually more, what is the reason for the outreach committee? I think Jay was asking, and I kind of have the same question because I'm not sure that it's ever been defined to me. I know some of the activities the outreach has done in the past and activities that we'd like to do, but what is the goal of how do we know that we're doing outreach successfully? What is the goal of the outreach committee overall?
To my knowledge, there isn't a specific goal, and I think we'd benefit from that. Or, probably not a single goal, but a strategy that would be a source of not only outreach, but inreach, if you will, of having people come talk to the commission.
So if the outreach committee exists to get the word out about the Human Relations Commission to the community and to also hear from the community, would
Yes.
you say that
Yes.
is like the overall goal
Yes, I would.
of the reason we have the committee? Does that make sense?
Mike, I don't know whether you obviously be aware of the history of how it was created, but I'm not aware that it does have a specific charter.
No, you're actually right about that. I'm looking right now at the bylaws, and the bylaws aren't clear. It simply says under Article 12, standing committees, in order to facilitate activities of the commission, there shall be various standing committees of which commissioners shall be members, including but not limited to a complaints committee and an outreach committee. So
That's it.
with a complaints committee, that's sort of an easy one. People file complaints. With outreach, I think there's a broader mandate on that. It could range everywhere from going in the direction that Chuck talked about. It could involve internally looking at ways that we can increase the membership and the diversity of the commission. So it's basically it's open to the members of the committee to define it as they wish, and up to the commission to approve those directions and definitions.
I'm wondering if one of our goals overall should be to actually define what is the outreach committee supposed to be doing, just overall, right? Because Jay's question was, does the outreach committee handle the marketing? And you're saying that there is really no definition as to so maybe the outreach maybe we should be defining what is the outreach committee responsible for. Does that make sense?
I would welcome that. Sure.
Okay. So as far as the complaint committee goes,
That would be me.
what is the role of the complaints committee?
The role of the complaints committee at this point is to receive the complaints and act on them as quickly as we can. If there's a different way of receiving complaints, I don't know. Because we've always done it, one way, and it could be changed, certainly. But that's what the complaints committee is for at this point. But, and as Mike says, it's kind of self-explanatory.
Well, and also I would just mention that I have a one-page summary of the Annapolis Human Relations Commission, which I use when we get expressions of interest in serving on the commission, or people just want to know what the commission does. I've got a lengthy paragraph which takes up about 40% of the page, in 11-point type. And the first sentence is the commission has engaged in many outreach activities. And it's a fairly lengthy list, which I'd be very happy to send to folks. I don't want to take time up to simply read it, but in a lot of respects, the commission has defined what outreach is in terms of primarily the programs that the commission has engaged in over the course of the various years.
Okay.
If you'd like, I can read the paragraph if you'd like it. That provides a pretty good definition. It says, again, the commission has engaged in many outreach activities. It organized a program recognizing the 50th anniversary of the Fair Housing Act of 1968. It prepared a report with recommendations about relations between Annapolis police and the community. It developed and distributed a brochure about the rights of citizens in the area of fair housing. It organized a speakers bureau about how communities can respond to hate groups. It established protocols with the Annapolis Police Department for responding to hate crimes and incidents, and held a workshop for the in-service training of officers. It persuaded the Anne Arundel County Public Schools to adopt a program of cultural proficiency for teachers and administrators. It initiated a dialogue project encouraging conversation between the residents of Annapolis public housing units and persons in neighboring communities. It had a program, Annapolis Mosaics, on the City of Annapolis television. It sponsored a Not My Child awareness program about the dangers of heroin and prescription drug abuse. It has had tables at community events. It placed signs about the commission on Annapolis Transit. It has held quadrennial open houses and forums for mayoral and city council candidates. And it makes an annual award at the Dr. Martin Luther King Breakfast and at the Senior Awards Program at Annapolis and St. Mary's High Schools. That's just a summary of some of the things the commission has done in the past, not designed to be totally inclusive, but rather illustrative. So in that respects, all of those kinds of activities can be considered outreach.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. But overall, too, I think, are we in agreement that the outreach commission's role at this point is defined as the committee that is responsible for reaching out to the community and connecting with them and educating them on issues that are deemed important by the commission?
Linda, may I just say that I think that in truth, although we may have a committee that spearheads that, I would just say that I think that it's the role of every commissioner to engage in some form of outreach to educate the public on what it is that we do and why it is that we exist. So while the committee may actually organize specific events, it's everybody's job.
Right. Agree. Absolutely. Okay. So with that, I'm going to take away the committee piece here, and I'm going to propose that we have 3 buckets again. One is just overall the commission itself. Number 2, outreach. Number 3, complaints. And I'm proposing that we'll organize these post-its into one of those buckets. And it may be something that will, and this will be part of our planning process. Like you said, Joshua, I mean, we'll all eventually start working on what our plans are around this. Does that make sense?
I'm fine with that, sure.
Makes
Okay.
sense.
All right, we'll try this and see. So let's start with outreach. What we can define as outreach. And I think we're deciding that outreach can include any of the things that Mike demonstrated or read. It can include marketing. It can include community events, right? It can include a lot of these things. I'm trying to get good colors here.
And Linda, I would add, and I think others should come at the point too, that in addition to, marketing and outreach, we ought to be listening more to the community and participating in their events. And a number of us have done that personally, but not as an organized part of the outreach committee. But again, I really do think it would benefit us to have, not necessarily at every meeting, but to have community leaders come in and speak about what their concerns are. And I hope we don't limit ourselves simply to race incidents or hate crimes. There is a racial tension that still lingers in Annapolis that is deeply concerning to me. And I don't think we ought to wait for things to become hate crimes before we are involved in trying to understand and hopefully find ways to eliminate, or certainly eliminate as much as we can of the racial tension, not just black, white, but the Hispanic community and others, including the LGBTQIA community. Jeremy was a member for a number of years, and I think we might want to have representation from that community as well.
Okay, I'm quickly regrouping my goal setting here because I think we're on to something. So just give me 1 second. Here's what I'm going to propose. I'm going to propose that we brainstorm on the topic of outreach. And then I propose that we brainstorm on the topic of the complaint process. How about that?
I have a question.
Yes.
So is there something about the complaint process that causes us as a commission to want to review it?
I mean, I can tell you off the top of my head that I recently discovered that our form that we have on the website is really not, it's out of date with how people need to use such reporting forms. It's a PDF that people have to download and then print, which nowadays we can actually we could have a form online that people could just fill out on their phone and not have to go through printing and then trying to figure out how to send it in. So that process itself, that's something that Mike and Claudia and Trisha and I talked about in a meeting that we recently had, and they had some ideas of how we could take a look at the form first, review it. I think it's going to be on our agenda tonight. Is that true, Mike?
It is on, it's on the agenda.
So that would be one thing. It could also be another thing, just taking a look at the whole process itself and seeing, like, I don't know when the last time it was reviewed, that process. Is it up to date with the times of the world? And how does it compare to perhaps other processes? Are there changes you want to make? And, I mean, Diane would know better than any of us if we decided to take a look at the complaint process. There may be some brainstorming that we could do on that, and there may not. I could be wrong. So I guess because those are the two things that we focus on, outreach and complaint process, that's why I'm proposing, why don't we just brainstorm on outreach, brainstorm on complaint process for now, and then see where we go from there.
If I may, with regard to the complaint process, I know that we were just discussing having 3 things that we focus on. Are you proposing that the complaint process be one of the 3 things that the commission focuses on? Because I think from what I'm hearing you say is that the process itself is outdated. And if that be the case, I'm wondering if the city already has things in place where they can update that complaint process, the forms that we utilize online, so it's more user friendly. But
So right now, what I'm trying to do is just have us generate ideas. And
okay.
so that's the first part of this, is just generate some ideas, not necessarily figuring out what we need to do with those ideas or how important it is. We'll get to the part then where we'll prioritize ideas. So again, I'm trying to simplify this somehow because it feels like everybody's a bit like we're overwhelmed a bit. So that's why I'm thinking, why don't we brainstorm on outreach ideas? Like Chuck just told us a bunch of outreach ideas that he has. And I wasn't really ready to bring that in because I was still talking about session goals. So now I'm saying, let's go ahead, brainstorm on outreach ideas. Then we can brainstorm on complaint process. And then we sit and analyze all that and, figure out what's important, what's next, what's our action plan. And yes, and then we figure out what are the 3 to 5 goals. It may be that outreach is really what we need to be working on right now, and we'll worry about the complaint stuff later. I don't know. But I'm not really suggesting anything and how we should do it. I'm just trying to help us get into a space where we can generate some ideas.
Yeah.
Is that making sense?
No, it makes complete sense. I just think that we have a lot of stuff going on in the city of Annapolis that the Human Relations Commission could potentially be addressing and be the liaison for the residents who really are, I would say, just for lack of better words, fearful to step forward to talk about some of the issues that they're facing every day. One in which I can say that there are a lot of the housing complex, public housing complex at that have mold in them. But they don't know exactly who to turn to. And so that's why I say outreach in the sense of informing residents that this is something that we can actually, help them to address. I just don't know where the complaint process fits in all of that. That's all.
Okay. And I agree. And actually, if you want to know, that's how this came about, that I looked at the complaint process because I got a call about some of the stuff that was happening in Eastport. And somebody wanted to file a complaint. And so they asked me, where do they find the form to file a complaint? So then when I went to go look for it, and then I saw it was a PDF, I was mortified because I knew they weren't able to print out forms, and then it still isn't really clear like what that process is. So I hear you. And so that's why we're doing this, because there is a lot that we could be doing. And so, yeah, I hear you.
But Linda, as a commissioner,
Yeah.
as a commissioner, my thing is this: if we see that and we know that, how hard is it for us to reach out to Mike and say, this is a problem
That's what I did.
that we need to address?
Yes.
And how hard is it for Mike to reach out to our liaison and whoever it is that he needs to reach out to address that immediately, rather than having a brainstorming session about something that we know has to be addressed? I mean, everyone doesn't have access to a printer to print out
Exactly.
and send it in. So the city of Annapolis needs to, in order for us to properly do our due diligence in our job, fix that, rather than us going on live stream to talk about something that should be fixed and can be fixed really in minutes.
Agree. And we did that. So that is it's underway, and we're going to update everybody on that on the agenda. And there's probably a lot of other ideas and issues that you've heard about of things that we need to be addressing. So again, that's why I propose that we have a goal setting meeting. Because for me, I would just like us to have an action plan, because my experience so far and being in this commission has been that we are often just reactionary and or canceling meetings because we don't have an agenda. And I see and hear so much stuff going on that I feel like we should be involved in, but I also know I'm only one person. So I'm not going to come to every meeting with a whole list of things. Like, I feel like we all should be kind of working on this whole plan together, right? So, I mean, that's me being honest. So that's why I propose that we have a goal setting meeting. If you would like to do something else, we can do that. And I don't have to lead a brainstorm. So I'm wondering, what would you rather us do right now?
No, I don't, let's not put it on me.
Okay, no, I'm not.
I
I'm
think
trying to understand, like, what do you want?
All I'm saying is that changing a form or the format in which we receive complaints should not be a complicated process where we have to have a brainstorming session.
This went off. You're muted. You're muted.
Yeah.
Should we have a brainstorming session? Absolutely. But having a brainstorming session to address something that can be so simplified as having the city fix the way in which we're receiving complaints, I don't know if it warrants for us to do that, but I think that you're right. I agree with you. Meetings are canceled. There's more that we can and should be doing as a commission. And I think it's a good idea to have a brainstorming session, just not about how to fix some forms that the city should be able to fix.
Yeah, the commission,
Isn't it?
the commission sort of operates like the proverbial iceberg. If you look simply at what's in the city code, that represents only a very tiny percentage of the time that the commission uses. If you look at outreach, outreach is that huge mass that you don't see because it's below the water. There's hardly anything that's in the city code that directly relates to outreach work, except that the commission can hold public hearings and the like, which have usually been done through the complaint process. You can think of the various times that we've held a public hearing per se. It's been things that have come up because complaints were filed about them. Thinking about the complaints part of the equation, I agree with what Joshua is saying. Most of the issues that may arise are things that can be handled relatively quickly. On the outreach side, that takes more time to come up with something that we think is something that's going to be useful to the community. And I think over the years we've done that, but it doesn't mean that we can't do more. Yes, Chuck?
Yeah, I'd like to pick up on what Josh said, and I think it can be a good general point, and I may be violating your agenda here, Linda. But one of the things I think can be, we can do very easily is, again, if you see something, say something. That if one of the things we might do each and every meeting, I'm jumping well ahead, is to go around the table and ask everybody what is one thing that can be done to improve the racial tensions and community tensions in Annapolis. I've never had Mike and I talk pretty regularly. If I feel the need for something, I call Mike, and within usually minutes or we're in discussion. I think that part is okay, but we probably need to spend more time on tending to, and it's not just hate crimes. I mean, yes, obviously we need to be, and I think we have generally done, I think Helen and her committee have done a good job on the specific issues of complaints. But I think we ought to broaden that some, that there's a lot of, I don't want to call them microaggressions, but is some of us, I've regularly participated in the Caucus of African American Leaders for probably 8 years now. And also the state equity call that now is every Monday. And again, you learn of, pick a number, 10 times as many issues of racial tension than we talk about at the Human Relations Commission. And yes, some of them are not within the actual boundaries of the city of Annapolis. But if there is tension anywhere in the state, I think that is something we ought to be concerned about in the city as well. But I would just add to what Joshua said, that maybe we should spend some time almost every meeting asking people, what do you hear? What are the specific things that need attention, and what can we do about them?
Helen?
Joshua, can I ask you a question? Because I know a family in the brand new reconstruction at Newtown who got totally flooded out from pipes
wow.
bursting. And now they're not gonna, the housing is telling them they're not gonna replace any of the beds and the furniture that they lost. How would you suggest that we could step in without them filing a complaint? Because these are the people you're talking about that aren't filing complaints, but
Yeah.
definitely have one.
Well, I think that in cases like that, and that's similar to stuff that I'm sure Linda is hearing, because she does a lot of work inside of the community. Things that I'm hearing, like all of the apartments in Annapolis Gardens that have mold in them,
Right.
which is insane.
It
But
is
they have
insane.
they have mold in them. Letting the community know that we're here, and if need be, helping them walk through the process of filing a complaint and explaining to them the importance of filing a complaint so that we can address some of these issues, because they need to be addressed. I think that is really the chief starting point, is explaining to the community how the Human Relations Commission can become involved in an issue is a core point that we need to make in the city of Annapolis.
Right. And that's our proactive part of the commission, I think. And just in case you all have already changed the forms for filing a complaint, I would like to say that I've had complaints from people who would not be capable of filling in a form on a computer or a phone because they don't have them. So I hope you take that into consideration too.
Yeah, we're going to discuss this as an item on the agenda, and I think the commissioners will be, I think, satisfied with how we're moving on this.
Okay, I hear some brainstorming, so how about if we just continue with this for a little bit? I've heard, I'm gonna bring this back up. Let me bring this back up. And I was trying to help categorize so it didn't seem like too much. But I think I'm just going to simplify it, that we're just going to brainstorm everything that we think we need to be working on, and then we can figure out how to prioritize. And we'll do that together. Does that sound okay with everybody?
Mhm.
And we're talking about our goals, and ultimately our goal is that we will have 3 to 5 goals that we will be working on from now until at least the end of the year. Does that make sense?
Does to me, yes.
Okay. So I'm going to try that. And I want
think
to add,
in terms of selecting the goals we can work on, we might want to take a look at the recommendations that we made to the comprehensive plan committee. And we came through some very specific, clear recommendations to them. And there's no reason why the commission cannot work on it, cannot work on those.
all right, you all see the things I've added on here, or the things that we just talked about? Is there anything else that I'm missing? Of some of the ideas. Chuck, you threw out a bunch of them at once.
Probably did.
And I was still trying to fit my format, so I've given that up. And so tell me the idea that you threw out.
Well, I was just, going
Have
off what Josh
speakers.
said, and I'm sorry.
Well,
Said bring
What'd
in
you say?
speakers, and you just said bring in speakers and leaders.
Yes, that would be one specific recommendation.
others?
Yes.
What were the other ones that you said?
I think that I would recommend we consider spending time at every meeting with people raising issues that they see need attention in the city of Annapolis. Which again
Well,
is
I'm
kind of
gonna
picking up on what
actually-
Josh said.
Yeah, I'm going to read the goals that we had for the 2040 comprehensive plan.
So Mike, before you do that,
Okay.
let's just I want to keep going with the ideas that were already out there. Chuck had a couple others, I think. And Helen, you had something about the complaint form, that people weren't able to get the form. So accessibility, I guess, we'll just put that there.
Yeah.
Want to make sure that I captured everything that we've already talked about. So Chuck, do you remember, were there any other ones? Can you see what is on the screen?
I'm I would urge commissioners to consider being regular participants in community organizations in Annapolis, and I bet many are. But probably the first meeting I came to of the commission, one of the first meetings I came to the commission, whatever that was, maybe 8 or 9 years ago, Carl Snowden came in and talked about Annapolis being a tale of two cities. And unfortunately, he is right. I think we've made some progress, particularly under this mayor, with that. But that he also talked about there are places in Annapolis where that he goes where he's not welcome. I mean, again, it's obviously less than a hate crime, but there still is tension in Annapolis where there shouldn't be. And I would recommend that people try to themselves go out. I think Jay may have mentioned, or somebody mentioned, that as individual commissioners, we ought to be more active ourselves in the community to get a better idea of the day-to-day areas of discomfort And the history obviously is not too good, but we're doing better. But Annapolis does have racial tensions. It was one of the last cities in America to desegregate its schools. Lynching occurred, about 100 years ago here. So I think we ought to do more of participating in community organizations.
Okay.
And I think
Maybe
many
doing
do, by the way.
reporting in when it makes sense. I added that.
I'd agree with, yes, I'd agree. But I think many members already do that. But then I like the idea of reporting in so that we know more about it.
Yep. Anything else? Do you want to go ahead, Mike, and read the goals that
I was just going to offer
Yeah.
a reminder that we used to use the cable TV productions for that kind of, not just having people at commission meetings, but community programming that highlighted what other resources and nonprofits and particular individuals were doing in the community.
So that would be a marketing tool.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'll say like expand marketing, and then that's one of the ideas. How about that?
Yeah, and I'd say the website's part of that too.
Yeah. Okay. Mike, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah. Yeah, the goals that we had, and I'm not going to read the strategies under them. One dealt with employing public transportation as a way to achieve a number of different positive outcomes. There was a goal to support and empower public housing residents and improve public housing properties. There was a goal to take steps to address the lack of housing affordability in the city.
Sorry, what was that one? What was that one that you just said?
Take steps to address the lack of housing affordability in the city. And I'm summarizing these. I'm not using all the text. There was a goal to deal with the symptoms and causes of social divisions and tensions that exist within communities. And then the final goal was to take steps to make Annapolis a hate-free city. And again, there were strategies attached to each of those, and those were shared with the individuals who are working to put together the Annapolis 2040 comprehensive plan.
Okay. And we still don't really know how much of this is really included in the 2040 plan.
You got to read the plan. I've very quickly read over it or reviewed it. It's been a while. I think the first three goals that I talked about, public transportation, public housing, and housing affordability, I can find them in the plan. But in terms of a discussion of causes and symptoms of social divisions and tensions and a hate-free city, I didn't see that addressed at all in the plan. Not saying it's not there, I just haven't seen it.
Okay. Okay. Well, that looks like enough content for meetings from here until the end of 2025 to me.
Or beyond. To make it more complicated, Linda, I would urge that the overarching goal of the commission be to strive for Annapolis to be a hate-free city.
Okay. Yeah, I put that in here.
But
and
that
yeah,
could even be the overarching goal for the commission.
Yeah, that could even be on our new website update. where we can kind of redefine who we are if we want, you know? So, let me go back to the original. So I tried to just kind of, I categorized when I went off, just the subjects, these were outreach kind of things. This was with the one complaint thing, and then the rest were just kind of overall goals for what we were hoping to accomplish in our exercise here tonight, and then overall. I didn't do this, find the bridge gap. Oh, that was one thing I know that you mentioned, Chuck, that I think would be important is, I think Jay said this, find and bridge a gap of all ages of members in the community. And I would love
Yes.
to expand that to ages, genders, sexual identity, right?
Yes.
All of the things that we're supposed to be looking at when it comes to discrimination. You know, citizen status. I don't know if there's a better word for that, but you know what I'm saying. So I'll just put that in there. So are there priorities here? Are there things that we can start doing? For instance, Chuck's idea of maybe a check-in at the beginning of each meeting or at some point every meeting, asking commissioners what, you know, discrimination they have seen or what kind of events that they know about. A check-in at each meeting where we can bring in the stuff that we are aware of so that we can work on solutions together if we need help, or check in about how we're handling that. I think that's a great idea. That's something that we could, you know, decide tonight. Let's do that. Let's just start doing that. Let's just start including that in our agenda.
And also to maybe report on what's going on in the organizations they participate in that is of importance to the commission. I think you mentioned that before, Linda.
Yep. Yeah. So that's an immediate, how about we categorize like that, right? These are immediate things we can start doing.
Linda, could I recommend when you do that kind of check-in, you might want to consider setting some parameters around that? This is a public meeting, a recorded public meeting. So it'd be really important that you're respectful and honor privacy or confidentiality elements when sharing that kind of information. Just that you have some good guards on that, you know.
Right. Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you have any framework that you might you know, that another commission may use, or anything that you know of that's been set up that we could look at and adopt? Or is that something we'd have to set up ourselves, figure out ourselves?
Let me see what I can find. And I'll share that.
Yeah, I think it can be pretty simple, Trish, and I agree with you. You know, no individual identification, and you know, just be aware that, I mean, we should be sensitive about raising issues that are contentious. By the way, I think we still should raise them, but raise them in a way that is respectful.
Well, and you know, we do have a Public Information Act that does set some real parameters around what you reveal about others. There's
That's a good idea.
Americans with Disabilities Act. There are plenty of laws that would at least give you some framework for that. But I think it's very reasonable as a commission that you declare what they are for you in those sharings, that you maybe start with a reminder of that before that part's opened up in the meeting. Just an idea.
Sure, be good.
Is there anything else here that could be immediate or that we can easily put priority on? Do you want to prioritize next on
Linda-
this?
Linda, if I
Yeah.
could say one thing,
Yep.
you were talking about the complaint forms. I think we should also, instead of the forms, which I think can easily be resolved, the process itself.
Yeah, thank
And I
you.
don't know whether or not that is something that can be addressed with the commission in and of itself. But I believe that the process of initiating a complaint should not just be based upon something that we've received, that we should be able to review or address information that we've learned while interacting with the general public. So, for example, the issue that we're hearing about with the flood, the issues that we're hearing about with the mold, those are things that commissioners should be able to raise rather than having to have a specific complaint, if that makes sense.
But how? I mean, if the individuals don't want to file a complaint, what do we do? How do we do it?
Well, if you received someone who's telling you about this flood, right?
Right?
Furniture being destroyed. Do we know why the people don't want to complain? Is it
No, and I'm not sure I even mentioned a complaint because wouldn't it be against the city?
That's a good question.
Or would it be against HACA?
Well, that's the city,
And or
right?
both, right? Yeah.
So I mean, I thought we couldn't do that.
Well, what I can tell you is what I do know, especially when it comes to dealing with situations where people have mold in their home. And, it's kind of like twofold, one in which individuals just don't know what to do. And
Right.
it being that individuals are fearful to come forward to talk about, mold in their home because they don't want to be retaliated against. And so that prevents a person from wanting to either way file a complaint, which
Exactly.
I think it should be addressed. We shouldn't act like our housing is perfect and we don't have these issues going on. And I think it really falls on the commission when they constantly, repeatedly hear things that are going on for us to find ways to address it.
I agree.
We need to,
I
do
agree
need to
too.
figure out, because I'll tell you the truth, the person that asked me about our form, I sent her the link and I just felt like, what would we do if they do file a complaint? Like, are our hands going to be tied? Is it going to, like, what really can the commission actually do about this, right? And so I agree that the complaint process we should be reviewing it. And I think that that's when we need to look at those other ways of handling this stuff that you read, Mike, about like all the things that you all have done in the past, right? Like maybe then we need to call for a town hall about housing issues and we need to call the papers in. I don't know, like, but it's over at Wilborn Estates too. There's flooding there and those are that's brand new housing.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
There.
so it might be the same person. And then people have been moved into hotels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And their kids have to be driven some way up to school here from Lothian because that's where they're staying. It's a real hardship.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what can we do about that? Like, that's the thing too. I don't want to have people fill out a form if we're just going to call them and say, oh, do you want us to try and help you remediate this? And then we're not even sure who to go to, right? Like, what is our
Exactly.
process for that?
Well,
don't-
let me answer your question, Linda.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you an actual case example. Now, in a situation like that, if we get a complaint from a community, we can invoke our authority to call a public hearing. And I'll give you an example of a time we did that. We had a complaint from the Residents' Council of one of the public housing units. It was that time it was the Eastport Terrace Harbor House. And we, based on the complaints that we were getting, and it was mainly aimed at the executive director at the time, you're right, we can't mediate something like that, but we held a public hearing. It was organized and held at Asbury United Methodist Church. And I was a little skeptical about whether we had many people show up. We had a lot of people show up. We had probably around 200 people show up to that public hearing. It went on till 2 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, right. Yeah, I
And
remember. you
the
telling me
mayor
about
and the mayor was there. And it didn't take much time after that there was a change in the executive director of that position. So that is something we can do, and it was right in the city code. We can hold public hearings if we find something out. But the important thing here was that we had the support to do this from the resident council. A request of the resident council that wanted something done about this. And we were able to respond dramatically to it very quickly. And we can do that again. But it's always good rather than, we take on the role of, well, we'll be the avenging angels here and we're just going to, step into a situation. We need to be a little cautious on that. If people are having serious trouble in the community because of flooding or mold or the kind, and we get a complaint about it, and we feel that it rises to the level of the necessity of a public hearing, we can call a public hearing. It's in the city code. It's, the developers may not like it, but they can't come back and say, well, you're acting illegally. It's in the code that we can do public hearings, and we did it in that one occasion, and we can do it again.
Well,
But on other matters, if, for example, it's a case of a one-on-one discrimination complaint, that is correct. Our role is
Right.
outlined in the city code. In housing issues, we've got as much authority as the Maryland Commission on Civil Rights. We can do the same thing there. We can hold public hearings on it. In other areas of discrimination, like public accommodations, our authority is limited to seeking mediation. And that's the role that the city council has given us. And so we have to be respectful of that unless we're able to persuade them to change it.
I think we need to start having some public hearings about all this mold that's running around in these public housing apartments where predominantly people of color are living at, these low income public housing apartments. And I would hope that would be something that we are willing to do, because it's becoming too common.
And I guess my question is, Mike, what's the difference between having a public hearing and a town hall as compared to people going and testifying in front of city council, which I know that last year there was a group of residents that went and did that. And basically how that was handled from what I know, and and I don't have a complete follow-up on how it ended, but a few of the people's individual issues got addressed. The city, they went to the housing committee meeting, which is Brooks, Dewan, and Ellie, and they raised some of the issues that they were having. And then the next meeting, I don't know what it's called, but they basically said that those housing, those residential managers, those community managers had to come to the next meeting to say how they were dealing with the issues, right? That's how they dealt with it. And then supposedly the individual issues got dealt with. So I guess what makes a town hall different than that? Because in the end, I think a lot of stuff just got swept under the rug once again, right?
Well, what could, what came out of the meeting that we had, which was a public hearing at at Asbury United Methodist Church and other subjects. We've had several public hearings in the years that I've been on the commission. Not a whole lot, but several. But what ultimately comes at the end is you prepare a written report, and the written report goes to the mayor and city council, and you can have recommendations. Now, in terms of willingness to act on it, that ultimately is in the hands of the elected leadership of the city, the mayor and city council. So that's what would come out of a public hearing that we would hold. In terms of city council, obviously the committees of city council can they can do similar things. And since the membership of those committees are people who also serve on the council itself, they have a lot of authority. The opportunity for people to raise complaints is strictly in the hands of the members of those elected bodies.
Okay, so maybe that's something that we need to take a look at in reviewing the complaint process. Like Joshua said, that when we start to hear about more than one person having the same issue, then we start to think about how can we bring this to the public, right? And would they work with us to bring it, that we'll let them know that we'll support them to bring it to the public and hold a town hall. And then do we then also make sure that our city officials are accountable and actually do what they say they're going to do, or that they do respond, that they have a plan, they put forth a plan? Like, we can have a town hall and everybody can show up and they can complain and then we can send them the report. But then what? That then there's the accountability piece that always just seems to get lost in the shuffle.
Linda, I think there's some middle ground there. I think we probably don't have the authority to be the accountability mechanism for public officials, but I don't think we ought to be shy about raising issues that make them uncomfortable. I think there's a lot of middle ground that can be explored there. I mean, mold is a great example. I heard reports of it. I didn't know it was as widespread as I've learned tonight. I think that's an excellent way, maybe of getting started in that process of what can we do about it.
I can
constructive.
I can send you some pictures, Chuck. A bunch of them.
Well, I believe, I would benefit from it, but I believe you, Josh. I've heard isolated reports, but didn't really understand how prevalent it was. But I think that might be an excellent initiative.
Dewan just sent an email that he's watching us and that he learned about that the complaint page is a PDF. So I think now more people are going to be on this, Josh. So, but yeah. So, okay. I mean, I think that is good to know. And I appreciate you reading that list, Mike, of things that have been done in the past, because that helps me understand more about what it is that we can do and how we can help and support people. Because again, the complaint form just felt not big enough, you know? And I didn't understand really how it would be handled.
Now, I agree with what Joshua has to say. That's something that should be able to be handled very, very quickly. It'll involve the intervention of the city's IT shop. But I don't anticipate there certainly shouldn't
Yeah.
be.
That's not the holdup. That's not any of the holdup, just so we're clear. I know you've got an
Yeah,
agenda item, so I've been holding my tongue about it. So.
Yeah, it's not. It's,
Yeah.
we wanted the board, I mean, we were bringing it back to the group because we want everybody to look at the form so
Yeah.
that if we want to make any updates on it, now is a good time to do that because now we're asking the technology department to actually create an online form. So,
That's right.
yes. So,
And they will do it quickly. We
Yeah.
just have to give them the form we want them
Yes.
to have.
yep.
And
And
we've also talked about creating it in a Spanish language version as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
and will you make it available to people who are not able to go online?
Yes, we have always, this would be part of your education and outreach. Anybody can come to the Human Resources Office and we will help them.
Yeah.
Good. That's the important part.
Or
We do
call,
that.
or can they call and then you can work with them to fill out the form?
Or
Yeah,
maybe even have
there's-
the
they still
forms
need
at
to
the public housing units.
What were you going to say,
I
Trish?
mean,
They still have to, it still has to come from them, so.
They
Yeah.
have to turn it in. Yeah.
But
But
what if I
We would be
can't
willing
come
to
the
work that out with
office?
an individual. Yeah.
I mean, for instance, I was just looking around to see what other HR commissions, what their forms look like. And the city of San Francisco, that's the first thing that popped up. Basically you just call and then they fill out a form with you, it looked like. So
Perfect.
that's, I think that would be a good option too. So again, if we look at the
Agreed.
complaint form, we can look at the complaint form and then we can look at the process and then make sure that we are checking off every box so that it is just more and more accessible for people.
Yeah, and
So-
all the things that you mentioned will be done. I mean, as things exist now, if someone wants to file a complaint, but they have some reasons that they simply can't access it, as Tricia said, they can call the Office of Human Resources, and their staff will help them fill out the form there.
We're very accommodating. We would not miss the
Yeah.
opportunity to follow through that way. I mean, somebody may have limited vision, they may have, other physical differences that made it difficult for them to complete it.
Okay.
We would not ever,
Right.
deny them
Linda,
a chance to get assistance from us.
I'm going to
Yeah.
wrap this up, Mike.
okay,
Okay, so here's what I'm proposing. I would really like us to put together a plan. What I would like to propose is that I'll put together a plan based on all the input that you all gave me tonight. And what I'd like us to do when we meet again is prioritize and set some timelines and just and then figure out who's going to work on what kind of thing. I mean, obviously make Annapolis a hate-free city will not be a task, right? But I love that that came up and that could be perhaps something that we start incorporating into all of the website material, and maybe we need to look at the pamphlet again. I mean, just all those pieces. So I think what I'll do is I'll put together kind of like some of the issues that we suggested this evening, and then what some of our solutions are, and then let's put together what I would like us to do is just really start committing to getting these things done.
okay, that sounds good to me, Linda. If we can have that in time for people to have a chance to digest it, and we'll put it on the agenda for it'll be the major discussion for our next meeting.
And if you have any other input, feel free to email me, and I'll incorporate it. And yeah, I'm happy to do that. So thanks everybody for contributing, and thanks for being patient with me because I worked on this presentation today. So I was like, okay, this is going to work and this is going to work. And then I was just like, oh crap, this isn't working. So I'm glad that I was able to collect a lot of good stuff though. And I'm excited about everything that we talked about tonight because it's really important. And I love the idea of really having a plan to go forward. So thank you.
Okay, I'd like to thank you very much, Linda, for doing this. I think we've generated a lot of really good ideas, and I think when we have our next meeting, I think we'll move quickly along to establish the priorities and set the timeline for getting these things done. I'd like to go back to the agenda. Many of these things I'm going to be covering here, I think we can go through it pretty quickly. Item 6B on the agenda. That's a status of response training for the commission, hate crimes and bias incidents. I want the emphasis there is status of response training. It's my recollection from the meeting that we had with Captain Amy Maguez that there was interest in the commission responding to hate crimes and bias incidents that occur in the community, and that there was a desire that the commission receive training in that area to enhance confidence in our being able to do this kind of thing. And Amy Maguez pressed that point. As I mentioned earlier, I attended the meeting of the, let me find their actual material here. I can pull it out. Yeah, I had it here. It was the meeting of the MAHA group. Here it is. Their Human Rights Day activity. And they had a plenary in the morning titled Addressing Hate Crimes and Bias Incidents. And they had two speakers, they had several speakers, but they had two who really concentrated their conversation in a way that reflected, I think, our needs. One person was in the Civil Rights Division of the Office of the Maryland Attorney General. And the second person was a specialist with the U.S. Department of Justice. And their focus was, I think, a broad, I guess one broad point which they discussed was, and it was in response to a question from one of the people attending, and that is, how do you strike a balance between the right to free speech and a criminal act, which basically separates out the difference between a hate crime and a bias incident. And both of the speakers, I think, covered a number of things that I think the commission would find very interesting. What you could do is simply invite them to speak at a future meeting of the commission, and that could technically cover the need for training in this area, because we're basically getting training in how to respond to these things. My guess is that both of them would probably say yes, and I don't think we would have any charge, because you're dealing with governmental bodies. So that was my initial reaction to this. And then the other point was we were, I think there was an effort made through Amy Maguez to contact the person at the community college who has provided training to law enforcement officers. I would like to know, before we go down that path, I would really like to know exactly what was covered in the training for law enforcement officers, because it might be different from what we need.
I'd be happy to share that.
Can you share that, Tricia?
Yes, um, Captain Miguez, I think characterized it as if it was, going to be connected to hate crimes. It was not. It was implicit bias, unconscious and conscious bias.
Okay.
And so their program is through the community college. It's the same program that the Anne Arundel County Police Department have been using as well as part of their compliance with the police reform legislation.
Yeah.
I don't think that's what you're after.
Yeah, I guess I'm so
I agree with
confused
you.
because she told us that they got hate crime training. So I'm just, I mean, that's totally different, right?
It is different, and I think they have had it in the past. So what I end up doing is I reached out to Captain Miguez again, and we sort of talked it through. She's not in charge of training and in-service matters for the department, so I end up talking to Rhonda McCoy, who has spoken to the commission as well, so you're familiar with her.
Yeah.
And so in speaking to her, she's reaching out to the state's attorney's office. And the goal there is really to make it more about laws that are impacting our APD, to really get a kind of a combo training that's going to be incorporating both what are the needs and expectations for recognition and enforcement on the part of our Annapolis Police Department, and then as part of that, connect the commission's role to it in the training. And so she offered to reach out to them to get this ball rolling. It's something they want to refresh in the department as well. And so they, because they develop in-service training for their own for APD itself, this is a really good opportunity for us to take advantage of that need and expectation and tie it into the commission's needs. That's going to necessarily get exactly what you're talking about, which is kind of the overlay with the Department of Justice. So we've got federal level, we've got local level ordinances and laws to enforce as well. And because clearly what the commission's role is laid out in the city code. And then separately, sorry, my assistant here is involved. So in talking to Rhonda McCoy in more detail about what they have been trained in unconscious bias, we're also looking at an expanded training for our city employees. So I reached out ahead of that discussion that I had today with a potential trainer for our city population. I talked to Hillary Raftovich because Hillary is in charge of all the boards and commissions. And so where I went with that is that, we need a broader reach here. It's really not just what the commission's doing, it's what the city is doing. And what the city should be also considering and doing is all members of boards and commissions should have some awareness and some self-screening skills around their behavior. And so they're not engaged in conscious or unconscious bias.
Mhm.
And to that end, we're pursuing a potential for probably virtual learning is my guess, is what's going to serve best, a very expansive population of volunteers who are part of our boards and commissions in the city. There's a significant number of people, really. And so we in HR are kind of taking on the task of that as well. So we had a really good discussion today with a potential trainer who does a lot of good workplace inclusion training, has a very extensive background. We used her probably a good 5 years ago for an executive level training. And Tyra Kimbo in the HR office and myself met with her today to really kind of map out our purpose and expectation. And so some elements that I really like about it is not just the basics around awareness, but way further than that, really getting into effective communications, how to be an upstander, how to kind of take on some advocacy for others as well, how to apologize, how to seek feedback or be curious or, make mistakes, but recover from them, and really improve the relationship piece that is not about acting on your exclusive behaviors, but being a more inclusive and inviting human
Yes.
while doing everything that you do in life.
And I really like that. And ultimately, I would hope that the commission is not only looking at themselves, commissioners in general, for all the commissions are not only looking at themselves as an individual, but also their commission, right? Because there's the individuals and then there's the systems.
Yes.
So
Correct.
that's the part that I feel like we, I would love to see us take a look at, like, what is it about, what are things in our commission? What are things in other commissions that are making them so they can't retain new members, that they don't have broad enough ages, like really
Yes.
taking a look at what is making it so that they're not inclusive, right? And
Yes.
then developing a plan to do the work to become more inclusive, whatever that looks like, right?
Right. Which is
So-
accountability as well, right?
Yeah. And then understanding how to work with the city and the resources that the city has. I mean, I think I brought as an example, one Annapolis has events regularly in the city for the African American community, the Hispanic and Latino communities. So understanding what those groups are doing, I don't know what you call them, that office is doing, and then what is their calendar of events, and perhaps that's something that commissions could participate in and support, right? So understanding what are the resources and what's the work the city is doing, and then how to tap into that.
Yeah.
Because I feel like commissions often are these little islands off doing their own thing, and I was so surprised to not that we didn't have regular communications with the city council or the mayor, and really understanding what their goals were and how we can tap into all that, right? So to make us not be islands.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that there is movement on the part of the city to hold inclusive or inclusion training for all of the different boards and commissions. Is that
Yeah,
what I'm hearing?
my offer to you as a commission is that we are going to be doing this with city employees. So
Okay,
I want to also make sure that the commission gets the opportunity to participate.
okay.
Great.
Is there interest
Great.
on the part of the commission to do this? Any
Sure.
objection? Okay, my next question then is, would the commission also like to have the opportunity to hear from these two individuals, one of whom works for the U.S. Department of Justice and specifically has helped to organize what she calls hate crimes forums, and the other individual who works for the Maryland Attorney General's office and is responsible for dealing specifically with responding to hate group activity, both in the form of bias report, bias incidents, as well as actual crimes. Is there interest in my inviting one or both of those individuals to speak to the commission? What's your thoughts about it?
Mike, I'd like to hear from them, but I also would like to make progress on some of the current issues we're facing. as you know, the current planning and goal setting, and would be concerned if we take up a couple meetings with that we might lose ground in some of the goal setting we're doing.
Well, we don't have to schedule it beginning in the next,
Yeah, exactly. I think that would be a great 6 month, out kind of thing. Or
I don't think the goal setting is going to take that long. Yeah.
Yeah, and that others may have different time. Yes.
Okay, what other thoughts people have about it?
My only question is the contact that Trish has uncovered. I guess I just am curious if there's overlap or Trish, I'm not sure if you have decided that contact would not really be a good fit for what we're looking for. Because we've talked about.
Are you talking about hate crime training or the implicit?
Yeah, the hate crime training.
So that one's not built yet.
Okay. Okay.
That's the one that is Rhonda McCoy's outreach to the state's attorney's office and.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think it sounds good.
Chuck?
Yeah, Trish, one of the things I certainly benefit from, I think others might as well, is to have either you or, and I forgot your name that you mentioned is in charge of commissions, to come talk to us about what is or what are the most effective commissions in the city in terms of outreach and involvement of the community and the rest. And how do they do it? What the lessons are.
So Hillary Raftovich is the person I mentioned. She's a community engagement administrator for the city. And I'll talk to Hillary and ask her.
I'm hoping there's some great examples.
Okay.
And that could be also part of that inclusion training, right?
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, what we would like to have, what she and I spoke about was kind of the ethics of being a commission or board member, right? And this is part of that, part of the preparation for the role. That would be a reasonable goal to expect of individuals who are signing up to participate in volunteering in one of the many ways with the city that you can engage. And, we do this for all new employees. We have anti-discrimination training before on day one. And so I would see this as very similar in an expectation of what you want a board member or a commission member to know and understand about their role in city government. And if we could have it, I mean, ideally you want in-person training, you want that interactive piece. We know that makes training stick better, last longer, but we have people with all kinds of schedules that would make that logistically a very difficult thing to accomplish. But if we could have something that is recorded, done at somebody's leisure, but they have a responsibility to watch it and sign off on it, that's a really good goal, I think.
Okay, I'm sort of hearing there is a consensus to move ahead, Tricia, with having the commission take part in the inclusion training once it's set up for all employees. And you're basically offering an opportunity for us to do this. And I think I'll just hold off for the time being in terms of contacting those representatives from the U.S. Department of Justice and from the mayor and from the Attorney General's office on responding to hate crimes and bias incidents. Those would come into effect if we start getting those kinds of episodes occurring. And by the way, they are occurring. That's one thing that was discussed by those individuals, that this is becoming rampant around the country. And Maryland has not been immune from that. And only doesn't this affect race, it also goes into religion, and it goes to
Anti-Semitism.
anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and
Right.
and also in the area for the LGBT community has been
Yes.
targeted by it. So it seems to me that somewhere down the line, the commission needs to become more aware of how they can respond and how they can help to counter this kind of activity. It was really clear to me in our conversation with Amy McGuez that the police department sort of wants to stay on top of this, and wants to do it. But I think that there may be circumstances in which we want to get involved, especially if the information arises via the media. The concern by Captain McGuez was that some residents might feel nervous talking with the commission about this particular subject, but I'm not sure that they would be any less apprehensive talking with police officers about it. So I really do think there's a role for us. There's a role for us here, but we can certainly keep that on the stack as we go forward. In terms of the item under, we're going down looking at the agenda, the accessibility of the HR Commission's complaint forms. We talked about that extensively. Do you have anything you'd like to add to that, Tricia or Claudia, in terms of what we discussed? I think we
just received an email from one of the city council alderpersons to encourage us to fix that situation with the accessibility of the forms. Yes.
We are. What we would like though is feedback, and I think that was what Linda alluded to earlier. We'd like feedback from the commissioners as to whether you would like to see changes on the form. We will very quickly take your comments, synthesize it into a document that would ultimately go to the IT department to turn it into a fillable form. But some of that is, and also we need it to be translated into Spanish so it's more accessible to Spanish-speaking population.
Yeah, I can email the commission the form.
Okay.
And then simply ask for them to review it and comment on it. I looked over myself and didn't see anything there that caused me to, get, oh my gosh, we got to change this in terms of the actual text. But I'll email it out to everyone so they can take a look at it.
So Mike, one thing I'm hearing from like Joshua in particular is maybe that form needs to include on it, rather than it appearing to be just a single person filing, asking a question relative to you. Do you know of other people who are similarly affected, or something along the lines to just to kind of get a sense of, is this a bigger problem than just a one?
Yeah, I think that's a good
Versus
suggestion. That's a very good suggestion.
And also, if we could have printed copies that might be at the HACA sites or in church communities and other places where people, they wouldn't have to, find a form. It would be available, where they are.
I'm really sorry. I'm forgetting the gentleman's name that came from, where was he from? CASA?
Yeah,
Anyway,
I think he was from Centro de Ayuda.
Centro de Ayuda.
Yes.
And so what I was concerned about, what he said, is it seemed like there was a great lack of information about where to go to get resources. So one of the thoughts I had was we can share the link to these organizations and encourage them to have that link to their media posts or their if they have a website, if they have information that they supply to others. And if it's done in a very simple and practical way, it'd be easy to distribute that.
Okay, well, the first step that'll come is I will email the form out to everyone. With respect to the update on Annapolis Ahead 2040, the comprehensive plan, I believe that's at the website now. The draft is. City Council has not taken that up yet. Am I correct on that, Tricia? I don't
You're
think City
correct.
Council.
I mean, there's been public hearings, there's been presentations to the council already. But
I think the last time I saw their timeline, they were looking at completing this by May and having a final vote on the council to adopt the plan by May. Is that still?
I'm looking at the website right now and it says that the City Planning Commission passed a resolution to approve the draft plan January 4th. And now they're giving it 90 days for final feedback.
Okay.
That the resolution will be introduced to adopt. Oh, the resolution will be introduced to adopt it on February 12th, 2024 at the City Council meeting. So again, like we made a list, but we still don't know. Nobody has taken the time to look through it. I actually tried to find a printed version of it and I was going to take it with me on my flight to Australia in December so I could read, because I'd have time to read it, right? And I was going to look and check off are those things in there, but I never could find a printed version of it. And I didn't have the printer capacity to print it out myself. I went to 2 libraries where they said they had it and they weren't there. So we still haven't read to find out if our input was accepted or not.
If I can just jump in really quickly, this is Carrie Berger, Assistant City Attorney. What's on the agenda for February 12th is the introduction of the resolution for the comprehensive plan on first reader. So there's going to be, I believe, don't quote me on this, but February 29th, a City Council work session. So nothing's going to be passed beyond just that first reader. So there's still going to be time for discussion, public hearing, things like that. I would, again, don't quote me on this, but I would imagine this will be a resolution that goes.
You're right. And there's a work session, it says February 29th in the council chambers with the City Council. So you're right. It does look like they're going to take some more time with it, but we don't know if they took our suggestions. Mike did a quick look through, you said, and you're not sure if all of them are there or in what format they're there.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think it is on the website though. So you might have to just put it aside a certain amount of time just to sort of read through the entire document, or at least pertinent parts of it.
Who's doing that?
I don't think it's been assigned.
No. Yeah. So I guess we just need to decide if that's a priority tonight and if anybody will do it. Because we continue to talk about it, but we're not addressing it.
So right now, let's go back on the timeline again. So it'll be introduced on first reader on February the 29th.
No, February 12th.
Excuse me?
February 12th. It's going to be introduced on.
Okay, it's February 12th. Okay.
There's a City Council work session on February 29th.
I see. Okay.
So most legislation is passed on first reader. It just means it moves on to the council for formal discussion, assignment to committees, all of that.
Is there a way we could, I'm looking at the draft right now and I see that there's 5 sections. Maybe we could split it up. Would anybody like to read a section of it and then take a look at, our suggestions being incorporated? Or Mike, is that a call that you make to the guy that came and met with us and ask him, go through each section and find out, where is it that he included that? Or do we just drop this?
Well, I think what I would like is for individuals to just take a look at the plan. You don't have to try to digest the entire thing because it's incredibly long. But what I would do is I could send commissioners the goals and strategies that we recommended And then if individuals would look through the plan and see the extent to which our comments were adopted or not, we could at least have a discussion about this at our next meeting.
Mike, I believe Eric Lashinsky gave you his email address.
Oh, I've communicated with him a couple of times since then. I've got his email.
Perhaps an idea is to communicate with Eric and ask where you might find in the document those elements that the commission shared, your goals and strategies.
Yeah, let me think about that. I think we're at a point though where I think Eric is pretty close to being finished with this in his mind anyway. Conversations I've had with him, I think we really have to take a look at the plan ourselves and see if there's monumental things that are missing. Ultimately, City Council will pass judgment on this because at their work session, if my understanding in terms of how the work sessions are organized, they actually look at components of a plan. Is that correct?
The council has had a number of presentations already.
Okay.
So
is the work session going to be something in which they're going to possibly make substantive changes in it, or?
So remember we had a conversation before about how to navigate the website and go on there and look up legislation, and that with the legislation, you also see staff reports and other documents that go with the legislation. I encourage you to do that because that's also going to give you the legislative history. Like it should also identify for you what committees it's been before already or will ultimately be assigned to. So if you stick with that during the course of its introduction and then work sessions and so on, you'll get a better idea of any amendments that get introduced, what the initial presentation is, any changes that will be occurring throughout this process. It should all be there loaded on the Granicus site for the legislation.
Okay, let me take the lead in terms of seeing what exists and see if I can come up with a way that I can share it with commissioners with specific comments to the extent to which our suggestions were taken or were not taken, for that matter. I think that's the best way to go. I think at this juncture, if the council has already made substantive conversations about it, and they pretty much know what that they plan to go with it as it is, then I'm not sure whether our involvement would really amount to much. But I don't want to prejudge that before I've had a chance to see exactly what's in the document. So I'll just get back to everybody on that. In terms of the report of the 2024 Human Rights Day in Annapolis, there is something I'm going to share with you. A big part of that session today was from around 10 o'clock to 4. Big part of it was having legislators come before the group to talk about the bills that they have introduced for the session and things that they are urging the human relations commissions, the human rights commissions of the state to back and get involved with. And it is a long list. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to send out to you all of the different proposals that were made. And if there's anyone who would say, gee, I really like to get more information about that, or they say, hey, I think we ought to get involved on this, then I can provide them with additional information about what the bill numbers are and as such. But I can tell you it was a long, I mean, every legislator had their own personal bills that they wanted to present. Some of them overlapped, but I think looking over that list will give you a sense of some of the stuff that goes on in the General Assembly session. They have close to 3,000 bills introduced. You have nothing like that. But some of the topics I'm sure are going to raise your eyebrows a little bit. But I am going to send that out to you next few days. My suggestion, just look through the list, and if there's something you say, Human Relations Commission really ought to be involved in this, and we ought to contact our legislators on this one, that I can tell you exactly how to do that. So from that standpoint, it was worthwhile taking part in the event at the Bush Library today. I've seen Lakeisha's name popping on and off. I was going to ask her if she had a report about the Human Relations Commission of Anne Arundel County. Lakeisha, are you still there? I think she may have dropped out. That finishes the agenda that I have. Is there anything else that folks would like to offer? It's almost 9 o'clock. We say that's our final witching hour. We won't go beyond that. I'd like to express thanks to a whole lot of people. I'd like to thank, first of all of our commissioners for taking part in our meeting this evening. I'd like to especially thank Linda for leading us through the goal setting process, and look forward to the next step. I'd like to thank Claudia and Tricia for offering their valuable advice to us, and for Carrie for taking part in our discussion, and to Mark Hildebrand, who has provided us with the Zoom technology, which went off tonight, was absolutely perfect. So thank you all, and with that, I will bid everybody a good rest of the evening.